My mother finally became pregnant with a second child, but prenatal tests revealed congenital limb deformities. I persuaded my parents to follow the doctor's advice and terminate the pregnancy, and they agreed, but when they saw the aborted male fetus with fully formed limbs, my father broke down. He started beating my mother and me every day, blaming me for meddling and blaming my mother for being useless and leaving him without an heir. My mother hated me for years because of this. And together with my father, they pushed me down the stairs to my death. My parents after rebirth. This time, no one will stop my son from being born. I laughed. Since you want a son so badly, I'll respect your wishes. The pungent smell of disinfectant and the blindingly bright white light overhead made Nola Lynn struggle to open her heavy eyelids. After a moment of disorientation, her heart suddenly tightened. This isn't the hospital morgue, but the obstetrics clinic, a familiar, sharp voice immediately rang in my ears, filled with a hysterical joy, a joy completely different from the previous life. Quack, I think you're nothing but a quack. What nonsense are you talking? Zane Lynn's face flushed red, his spittle nearly spraying onto the doctor's face. How could my son possibly have any problems? No one is going to stop my son from being born. Wang Xiulian also joined in the shouting, snatching the prenatal report that read high possibility of limb deformity. Termination of pregnancy recommended and tearing it to shreds, the scraps of paper flying everywhere. Did you hear that? My son is perfectly fine. You black-hearted people just want to scam us out of our money. Nola Lynn's blood ran cold inch by inch. This scene, these words, she had been reborn. Returning to the very day her mother, Wang Xiulian, had just received the prenatal report that had sealed her tragic fate in her previous life. What chilled her to the bone even more was that her despicable parents, Zane Lynn and Wang Xiulian, judging by their confident and excited expressions, had also been reborn alongside her. Before Nola Lynn could process this earth-shattering truth, Zane Lynn had already roughly yanked her from her chair and pushed her in front of the doctor, patting her shoulder as if showcasing a high-quality product. Doctor, look, this is my eldest daughter. So healthy, so smart, how could a child of mine, Zane Lynn, possibly be anything but normal? Wang Xiulian stared at Nola Lynn as if guarding against a thief, her gaze venomous. As though Nola Lynn were the demon who would harm her precious son, she seemed eager to drive her away from sight immediately. Nola Lynn lowered her head, concealing the turbulent storm and bone-chilling coldness in her eyes, while forcing a timid, submissive expression on her face. In her previous life, it was also here that she had pleaded desperately, analyzing the pros and cons, and finally persuaded her parents to give up the child. But what was the result? After the deformed baby was aborted, her father, Zane Lynn, completely broke down. Just because it was a boy, he vented all his resentment on her and her mother, beating them nearly to death, and her mother, Wang Xiulian, that weak and foolish woman, ultimately sided completely with her husband, believing that Nola Lynn had shattered her hopes. She joined forces with Zane Lynn and personally pushed her off the balcony, from over 20 stories high. In the moment of her fall, the wind roared in her ears, yet she remembered with startling clarity how she had desperately grabbed the clothes of that wretched couple, dragging them down with her into the boundless darkness with a resolve to destroy them all. Unexpectedly, heaven had truly given her a second chance. Dad, Mom, in the taxi on the way home. The air was so oppressive it was almost suffocating. Nola Lynn looked at the rapidly receding street scenes outside the window, her voice deliberately controlled to sound hoarse as she tentatively began. What the doctor said isn't entirely without reason. What if, shut up, before she could finish. Wang Xiulian shrieked like a cat whose tail had been stepped on. She grabbed Nola Lynn's arm, her nails digging almost into the flesh. What evil intentions are you harboring, you jinx? You're just jealous that I'm going to have a son. Let me tell you, Nola Lynn, everything in this family from now on belongs to your brother. Every penny you earn must be saved for him, to pay for his education, to get him married, to buy him a house. Zane Lynn, sitting in the passenger seat, turned around abruptly at these words, his eyes fierce. He kicked Nola Lynn hard on the shin, causing her to gasp in pain, but she clenched her teeth tightly and made no sound. Did you hear that? That's what your mother said, you useless, money-raining good-for-nothing. If you dare say one more word of nonsense, I'll tear your mouth apart. Work hard and take good care of your mother. "Or I'll break your legs," Zane Lin threatened viciously, as if Nola Lin were some mortal enemy. The driver glanced uneasily into the rearview mirror but didn't dare to speak up. Nola Lin slowly lowered her head, the stray strands of hair falling over her forehead obscuring all expression. She gently rubbed her sore, kicked calf, and when she looked up again, the cold glint in her eyes had already vanished. Her voice was so soft it was almost inaudible. "I understand, Dad, Mom. I'll take good care of Mom, and I'll take good care of the future little brother too." But in her heart, a voice sneered coldly, "Fine. Since you're so dead set on this precious treasure, then you asked for it. In my past life, what did my earnest advice get me, in this life? I'll keep my eyes wide open and watch closely. Watch how you cling to this hope and step by step walk straight into hell. Watch how you bring about your own ruin." Not long after, Nola Lin's grandmother, old Mrs. Lin, was brought from the countryside by Zane Lin under the pretense of taking care of the pregnant woman. As soon as the old lady stepped through the door, the house was filled with the heavy scent of incense and candles. "Every day," she muttered mysteriously, holding talismans obtained from who knows where, burning them to ashes, stirring them into water, and forcing Wang Xiulian to drink it. In her previous life, Wang Xiulian had detested these things to the extreme, arguing with the old lady every day until the household was in chaos. But in this life, it was as if she had become a different person. Not only did she not resist, but she even proactively asked old Mrs. Lin every day, "Mom, where's today's talisman water? Please don't forget the timing." Seeing her daughter-in-law so cooperative, old Mrs. Lin was even more pleased, patting her chest and assuring her, "Don't worry, with me here, I guarantee this baby will be a golden grandson with all the right parts, fair and plump, and no one will be able to take him away." Nola Lin watched as Wang Xiulian downed the bowl of murky talisman water without even a frown. Even wearing a faint, satisfied smile at the corner of her mouth, she sneered inwardly. She timely walked over with a glass of warm water, her tone tinged with concern. "Mom, Grandma, is this talisman water really effective? I heard from the doctor that pregnancy requires scientific nutritional supplements. The ingredients of these things are unknown. What do you know, you little brat?" Old Mrs. Lin glared with her triangular eyes, thumping her cane on the floor. "This is a divine pregnancy, a treasure bestowed upon our Lin family by heaven. Don't you dare jinx it with your crow's mouth. I think you're just jealous that your mother is going to have a son." Zane Lin also chimed in, waving his hand impatiently. "Get back to your room and stop being an eyesore here. Your mother and grandmother's affairs are none of your concern." Nola Lin lowered her head, a trace of mockery flashing in her eyes, but she replied meekly, "Understood, Dad, Grandma." Not long after, Nola Lin's application for a university internship apartment was approved. Using the excuse that her internship location was far from home and that returning late might disturb her mother's rest during pregnancy, she proposed moving out to Zane Lin and Wang Xiulian. The two were more than happy to see her leave and avoid having her bring bad luck at home, so they readily agreed. On the day of her departure, Nola Lin packed a few pieces of clothing in the living room. Wang Xiulian was being attended to by Grandma Lin, being spoon-fed a meal of incense ash mixed with rice, which was supposedly divine soil. Nola Lin carried her bag and walked over to the sofa as if to retrieve something. With a slight turn of her body, a black object the size of a button slipped from her fingertips and silently fell into the gap of the sofa cushion. She straightened up, her expression showing no sign of anything unusual. "Dad, Mom, I'll be going now." Zane Lin grunted without even looking up. Wang Xiulian, on the other hand, shot her a disgusted glance, as if she were some kind of virus that could pollute the air. In the blink of an eye, the due date arrived. That day, Nola Lin was organizing data in the lab when her phone suddenly started vibrating wildly. It was a call from Zane Lin. As soon as she answered, his roaring voice exploded through the receiver. "You brat, get your ass to the city hospital right now. Your mom gave birth. It's a big, chubby boy. Hurry up and come take care of her during the postpartum month. You hear me?" His tone was filled with uncontrollable excitement and an air of command. Nola Lin hung up the phone, a cold smirk curling at the corner of her mouth. Unhurriedly, she packed her things and took a taxi to the hospital. Just as she arrived at the inpatient building, she scrolled through her social media and saw a post Zayn Lin had made half an hour earlier. A 9-square grid of photos of the baby's tiny feet and hands, captioned, "Joyfully welcomed a precious son, mother and child are safe and sound. I, Zayn Lin, have an heir now." Below it was a string of congratulatory messages. Pushing open the hospital room door, Zayn Lin and old Mrs. Lin were gathered around a crib, their faces beaming with joy. Wang Xiulian lay on the bed, her complexion pale but her spirits unusually high. "Nola is here, quick, come and see your little brother," old Mrs. Lin called out, her face blooming into a wide smile. Nola Lin walked over and looked at the tiny infant in the crib. His skin was pink and tender, his eyes closed, breathing evenly, with his little hands and feet curled up. He looked perfectly healthy. A fleeting doubt crossed her mind. Could those talisman water and incense ashes really have such a miraculous, fate-altering effect? "Look, how beautiful my son is," Zayn Lin said proudly, pointing at the baby, 7 pounds and 8 ounces. "Even the doctors said it's rare to see such a robust newborn." Nola Lin lowered her eyes, concealing the deep thoughts within them. During the postpartum month, Nola Lin almost became a full-time nanny. Wang Xiulian, emboldened by having given birth to a son, ordered Nola Lin around and criticized her relentlessly. Zayn Lin treated her as free labor, going to work during the day and returning at night to check whether she had taken good care of his son and his wife. The slightest dissatisfaction would lead to physical abuse, accompanied by curses. "Worthless girl, serving your mother and brother is your blessing. If it weren't for the fact that you can still do some work, I would have kicked you out long ago." Nola Lin endured all of this in silence, never uttering a word about the health of the infant Lin Tianyu. Only in the dead of night, as she gazed at that innocent sleeping face, did she sneer inwardly, "Don't worry, the best is yet to come." Finally, the day of the full moon arrived. Zayn Lin hosted a dozen tables at a mid-range hotel, entertaining relatives and friends. During the banquet, he carried Lin Tianyu, wrapped in a brand new swaddling cloth, beaming with pride as he moved between tables to show off the baby. Wang Xiulian, meanwhile, sat like an empress dowager, graciously accepting everyone's compliments and congratulations. "Oh, Zayn, your son is so handsome, look at that forehead, it's just like yours. He's sure to have a bright future. Xiulian, you're so blessed, your first child was a daughter, and now you've got a chubby little boy, a perfect good character." Wang Xiulian couldn't stop smiling, and Zayn Lin puffed out his chest with pride. Nola Lin sat in the corner, watching the commotion with a cold gaze. The banquet was nearing its end, and the guests, having eaten and drunk their fill, were preparing to leave one after another. Suddenly, with a whoosh sound, Tianyu Lin, who was being held in Zayn Lin's arms, abruptly arched his back, his small face turning blue and purple, and then began foaming at the mouth while his limbs twitched irregularly. "Tianyu, Tianyu, what's wrong with you?" Wang Xiulian screamed, springing up from her chair and rushing over. Zayn Lin was also panicked, holding the child at a loss. Son, don't scare your dad." The scene instantly descended into chaos. Nola Lin slowly stood up, took out her phone, and dialed a number. A few minutes later, her internship mentor, the renowned pediatric expert Professor Li from the city hospital, rushed in with several young doctors. As soon as Professor Li saw Lin Tianyu's condition, his face darkened. He immediately directed his assistants to perform emergency treatment while scolding Zayn Lin and Wang Xiulian harshly. "This is absurd, utterly absurd. I told you long ago that the fetus had a high probability of limb deformities and recommended termination. But you refused to listen, and now you dare to recklessly feed the child unclean talisman water and incense ash, causing severe heavy metal poisoning. Do you even realize that this child now has cerebellar hyperplasia, congenital deafness, epilepsy, severe liver hydrops, and a ventricular septal defect in the heart? You've brought this upon yourselves. Prepare to take care of him for the rest of your lives." A barrage of medical terms left Zayn Lin and Wang Xiulian completely stunned. Zayn Lin asked in a daze, Professor Li, what does cerebellar hyperplasia mean?" Nola Lin stood nearby and, in a not-too-loud voice, kindly explained for him. "Dad, cerebellar hyperplasia, in simple terms, means cerebral palsy." "You bitch, What nonsense are you spouting? Zayn Lin suddenly turned his head, his bloodshot eyes glaring at Nola Lin, and raised his hand to slap her across the face. Nola Lin seemed to have anticipated it, tilting her head slightly to dodge the blow effortlessly. Before Zayn Lin could launch a second attack, she slapped him back with all her might, landing a solid blow on his face. The crisp smack echoed clearly in the chaotic private room. "Dad." Nola Lin's eyes instantly reddened, her voice choked with tears yet unusually firm. "Calm down, I was just trying to help clarify my brother's condition. How could you hit me?" Two tall, sturdy men nearby, Nola Lin's college classmates and current colleagues, who had been keeping an eye on the situation, immediately stepped forward. Each took one side, firmly restraining the furious Zayn Lin. One of them advised, "Mr. Lin, please calm down, let's talk this out properly. There's no need for violence." The farce at the full moon banquet ended with Lin Tianyu being taken away by an ambulance, and Zayn Lin, clutching his stinging cheek, making a humiliating exit under the varied gazes of relatives and friends. In the hospital, Professor Li's diagnosis hit like a death sentence, each point striking Zayn Lin and Wang Xiulian with terror: cerebellar hyperplasia, congenital deafness, epilepsy, severe liver hydrops, ventricular septal defect. Each term was like a heavy hammer, shattering all their beautiful dreams. At first, old Mrs. Lin kept insisting, "The hospital must have made a mistake, and our Tianyu is a divine child." But as Professor Li presented a series of test results and imaging scans, her voice grew softer and softer until she fell completely silent, slumping onto the hallway bench with hollow eyes. The Lin family was completely shrouded in gloom and despair. Lin Tianyu's condition was dire, and the daily costs of treatment and examinations were draining their finances like running water. Zayn Lin and Wang Xiulian visibly deteriorated, with heavy dark circles under their eyes, greasy hair, and within days, they looked utterly worn out. In the first few days, they only shuttled between the hospital and home. Before long, Zayn Lin found Nola Lin at her internship apartment and demanded she quit her job immediately to return home and devote herself entirely to caring for her brother. "With your brother in this state, how can you still focus on an internship? Come back right now. The family needs you." Zayn Lin blocked the doorway, his tone leaving no room for argument. Nola Lin had just finished an experiment and was still wearing her lab coat, without even looking up. She continued organizing the data records in her hands. "The hospital has nursing staff, grandma is at home, and mom is still mobile. What would I be going back for?" "What for?" "To take care of your brother. Are you just going to stand by and watch him suffer?" Wang Xiulian followed her, her voice sharp, her face flushed with a sickly redness. "You're his sister. This is your responsibility." Nola Lin finally set down her pen and looked up at them, her gaze calm and unruffled. "My responsibility is to complete my studies and my work. He has parents. You are his primary caregivers. You heartless beast." Zayn Lin trembled with rage. "We raised you all these years. And now that we need a little help from you, you make all these excuses. If we'd known you'd be so ungrateful, we should have drowned you at birth." Wang Xiulian even lunged forward directly, trying to grab Nola Lin's arm, but Nola Lin sidestepped to avoid it. "Nola, mom is begging you." "Tianyu," the doctor said. "The doctor said that a liver transplant might give him a glimmer of hope. Your match." Nola Lin's eyes turned cold. "So, that's your plan?" She let out a soft laugh, but the sound sent an inexplicable chill down Zayn Lin and Wang Xiulian's spines. "I'm not a living organ bank. He has parents, it's not my turn. Besides, Dad, I remember Professor Li mentioned that your match with Tianyu was a perfect fit." Zayn Lin's face changed, his eyes darting away. "Nonsense. When did the doctor say that? I'm the head of the family. How could I undergo surgery?" "Is that so?" Nola Lin raised an eyebrow. "Shall I invite Professor Li over to confront you face to face?" Zayn Lin and Wang Xiulian's clever plan fell through, and they didn't dare to push too hard. After all, Nola Lin was no longer the timid girl from her previous life who could be easily manipulated. They left in disgrace, and before leaving, Zayn Lin viciously spat out, "You'll regret this." A few days later, an account named Desperate Father suddenly appeared online. The account posted a video in which Nola Lin stood coldly at the door while Zayn Lin and Wang Xiulian pleaded desperately. With the faint cries of a baby in the background, the video was carefully edited, accompanied by a photo of Lin Tianyu lying in a hospital bed with tubes inserted and heart-wrenching, tear-jerking music. The written accusation was even more heart-rending. Word by word, I, Zane Lin, have a daughter, Nola Lin, a medical master's graduate from a prestigious university, currently interning at the city hospital. My son, Lin Tianyu, is unfortunately suffering from a serious illness and urgently needs a liver transplant. As his sister, she has turned a blind eye to his plight and refused to donate her liver. She even said something as heartless as, "He has parents, it's not my turn, my wife and I are not a match. And our daughter is our son's only hope. Please, everyone, help this desperate father and save my poor son." Prestigious university medical master sister refuses to save brother. Cold-blooded daughter refuses liver donation. The video quickly gained traction, and with a few marketing accounts steering the narrative, it instantly went viral online. Holy crap, is this even human? Not even saving your own brother. All that education went to the dogs, a medical master's degree. More like a cold-blooded monster with no humanity. How did someone like this become a doctor? Fire them immediately. Nola Lin's name, university, internship, hospital, and even maliciously photoshopped pictures were dug up and posted online. Her phone was flooded with calls, and her social media inboxes were inundated with countless vulgar insults and curses. The official social media account of the internship hospital has also been flooded with comments demanding that the hospital severely punish Nola Lin and give the public an explanation. Some even threatened to go to the hospital to capture her in person and carry out punishment offline. As Nola Lin walked down the street, she could feel piercing gazes like arrows aimed at her back. Her mentor, Professor Lee, and a few sincere classmates called to express their belief in her and offer support. But the overwhelming tide of public opinion felt almost suffocating. Zane Lin, seizing the momentum of the hype, started livestreaming to promote product sales. In front of the camera, he tearfully recounted his misfortune and his daughter's ingratitude, which moved countless uninformed netizens to open their wallets. Within just a few days, the number of viewers in his livestream repeatedly hit new highs, with donations and product sales soaring. Soon, an anonymous post on a local forum claimed that Zane Lin had been seen driving a newly purchased BMW in and out of upscale residential areas, while his son, Lin Tianyu, whom he described as urgently in need of treatment, remained in an ordinary hospital ward, receiving only the most basic medication. Wang Shulian also frequently appeared in the live streams, her haggard face and tearful tone winning her widespread sympathy. As she watched the rapidly scrolling donations on the screen, a faint, almost imperceptible glint of greed occasionally flashed in her eyes. Nola Lin asked Professor Lee for a few days off. She ignored the outside noise and calmly organized the evidence in her hands. The miniature recording device she had installed in the crevice of the living room sofa clearly captured every word Zane Lin and Wang Shulian said while pressuring her to donate her liver, including Zane Lin's statement, "I am the head of the household. How can I undergo surgery?" On the day of the full moon banquet, the hallway surveillance outside the hotel private room also recorded the entire incident of Zane Lin striking her first and her fighting back in self-defense. There was also Zane Lin's social media post flaunting his new car, photos taken by netizens of him entering and exiting upscale residential complexes, and screenshots of his livestream sales figures. She registered a new social media account with the username, "Pundi is dead, Nola Lin rises," in the quiet of the night. Nola Lin sat under the lamp, finished organizing all the evidence materials, and began recording her response video. In the frame, her face was calm, her eyes clear and resolute. "Hello everyone, my name is Nola Lin. Before today, many of you knew me through an account called Desperate Father, but today, I want to speak to you in my own voice. The desperate father in the videos is my biological father, Zane Lin. The child lying in the hospital bed is my younger brother, Tianyu Lin, and I. Nola Lin, used to be named Pundi Lin." She paused, then clearly spoke the name that had accompanied her throughout her childhood and adolescence. "My birth family favored boys over girls. Those who understand. From the time I can remember, I knew I was the worthless one, the one paving the way for my brother. Before my brother was born, the doctor clearly told my parents that the fetus had a high possibility of limb deformities and recommended an abortion, but they, including my grandmother, firmly believed it was a divine child that would bring glory to the Lin family. In the end, after the child was born, he was diagnosed with multiple severe illnesses. Regarding the matter of liver donation, first, my father, Zane Lin, and my brother, Tianyu Lin, have a perfect liver match. There is a hospital matching report as proof. Second, the so-called I am unwilling to donate my liver, the truth is, after I clearly refused, the couple still subjected me to moral coercion and pressure. There is a recording of this. Nola Lin presented the recording, the surveillance video of Zane Lin hitting her, and screenshots of him live streaming to gain sympathy and flaunting his wealth. My father, Zane Lin, plays the role of a desperate father, online, profiting from his son's illness to gain sympathy, making a fortune daily, upgrading from a Xiaoli to a BMW, and living in upscale neighborhoods. On the other hand, he only provides his critically ill son with the most basic and cheap medications to sustain his life. He has a perfect match with his son but refuses the surgery, using the excuse that the head of the family cannot fall, and instead shifts all the pressure onto me, his daughter. Tell me, who is truly cold-blooded and heartless here? At the end of the video, Nola Lin looks directly into the camera. I will not donate my liver, not only because there is a more suitable donor, but also because I refuse to let my kindness become their capital to continue their wrongdoing. Pundi is dead. From now on, I am only Nola Lin. The video caused an immediate uproar on the internet as soon as it was released. Nola Lin has risen. Pundi is dead. What a great name. You go, girl. Holy crap, what a plot twist. So these are the kind of parents they are. Disgusting. Zane Lin is a perfect match but forces his daughter to donate, and plays the victim to get a BMW. Is this even human behavior? Pundi. Just from this name, you can imagine what kind of life this sister must have lived before. It's heartbreaking. Pundi awakens and tears apart her blood-sucking parents. This topic must be pushed to the top. The most toxic parental hearts. Zane Lin come out and apologize. The comment section, which had previously been overwhelmingly critical of Nola Lin, saw a sudden reversal in public opinion. Angry netizens flooded into Zane Lin's livestream like a tidal wave, with the screen filled with bullet comments like liar, refund, and scumbag. Zane Lin had barely said, "Folks, today I'm recommending a product," before being mercilessly criticized, forcing him to end the broadcast in disgrace. Soon after, Zane Lin's home address, the model of his newly purchased BMW, and its license plate number were all doxed by angry netizens. The next morning, his brand new BMW was found splattered with red paint, and its tires were slashed. Nola Lin watched the constantly refreshing comments and news on her phone, a cold smirk curling at the corner of her lips. Zane Lin's desperate father persona collapsed overnight. His livestream was banned, the products he promoted faced mass returns, and the merchants who once flocked to him quickly distanced themselves. Legal demand letters poured in like a snowstorm. The BMW he had painstakingly earned hadn't even been driven much before angry netizens splattered it with red paint and slashed all 4 tires. In the end, he had to sell it at a rock-bottom price, barely covering a few of his financial holes. Amid the chaos, Grandma Lin hurried back from the countryside, covered in dust. As soon as the old lady entered the hospital room and saw Tianyu Lin lying weakly on the bed, hooked up to various tubes, and Xiaolian Wang looking haggard and despondent, her triangular eyes narrowed, she thumped her cane on the floor and exclaimed, I told you, the doctors in the city hospitals are all talking nonsense. What birth defects? I think it's your inauspicious fate as a mother that brought misfortune to my grandson." The more old Mrs. Lin spoke, the angrier she got, her spit flying everywhere. "And this name, Tianyu, even the heavens can't protect him, it has to be changed. Call him Gaodan, Lin Gaodan. A lowly name is easier to raise." Wang Xiaolian was already in a daze, but upon hearing this, she suddenly looked up, her lips trembling. "Mom, what did you say?" "I said I'm changing your son's name to Lin Gaodan." Old Mrs. Lin raised her voice even louder. "You, a hen that can't lay eggs, finally got a golden grandson, and now you want to jinx him to death. Is that it?" Zane Lin was already irritable. and hearing his mother's words, he seemed to have found a punching bag. He grabbed Wang Xiulian by the hair and slammed her against the wall. "Jinxing your husband and son. You, a jinx, how did I end up marrying such a cursed thing? If anything happens to my son, I'll skin you alive." Wang Xiulian was beaten until her head was bleeding, and she screamed in agony. She had always been timid. But at this moment, she found an unexpected surge of strength, shrieking in defiance. "Zane Lin, you're not human. You were the one who insisted on having a son. Now that something's gone wrong, you're blaming it all on me. How dare you talk back?" Zane Lin struck even harder, his fists raining down on Wang Xiulian like a storm. Old Mrs. Lin, instead of intervening, clapped her hands and cheered from the side. Hit her hard. A disobedient daughter-in-law like her needs to be taught a lesson. She needs to know who's in charge of this family." Late at night, Wang Xiulian, her face bruised and her body covered in injuries, hid in the hospital bathroom. With trembling hands, she made a call to Nola Lin, her voice choked with tears and despair. "Nola, save me, your father, he's going to beat me to death." Nola Lin had just finished her experiment, her voice betraying no emotion. "If there's domestic violence, call the police. When you slandered me online, forced me to donate my liver, and called me an animal to my face, did you ever think of me as your daughter?" Beep, beep, beep. The call was abruptly ended. Wang Xiulian held her phone, sliding down onto the cold tiled floor in despair, sobbing uncontrollably. Nola Lin put down her phone and took out the button-sized recording device from the drawer. She had retrieved it after returning to her apartment, and it clearly recorded their excitement. In the Lin family's living room over the past few days, old Mrs. Lin's superstitious ramblings, Zane Lin's verbal abuse and physical violence toward Wang Xiulian, and the two of them conspiring on how to further exploit Nola Lin. She spent a few minutes editing the clips of old Mrs. Lin promoting the divine fetus, berating Wang Xiulian for cursing the grandson, and Zane Lin's domestic violence. She then anonymously packaged and sent them to several well-known local anti-domestic violence organizations and a few influential media personalities online. The email subject line was also quite interesting. "Desperate father stages full-on violence at home. Divine fetus grandma blames daughter-in-law for cursing grandson." Lin Tianyu's condition was visibly deteriorating day by day, with daily treatment costs and expenses for imported medications piling up like falling snowflakes. The money Zane Lin had scraped together by playing the victim was quickly running out. The newly bought BMW was sold off at a low price, and the old Cherry had long been used to pay off debts. As he stared at the ever-increasing numbers on the medical bills and then at the son on the hospital bed who showed almost no signs of life beyond breathing, his last shred of patience finally wore thin. That day, the hospital issued another critical condition notice. With bloodshot eyes, Zane Lin snatched the small amount of money Wang Xiulian had just borrowed and roared at her. "He's beyond saving. This kid is nothing but a debt collector. I won't let him drag me down. Figure out the rest of the money yourself." With that, he stormed out of the hospital without looking back, vanishing without a trace. Wang Xiulian was completely stunned. She called everywhere but couldn't find Zane Lin. The hospital pressed for payment, while relatives and friends avoided her. Crying out to heaven brought no answer, and pleading to the earth yielded no relief. All she could do was hold Lin Tianyu in her arms, weeping helplessly in the hospital room. A few days later, an anonymous package arrived for Wang Xiulian. Inside were several high-definition photos. Zane Lin was seen arm in arm with a young, seductive woman, the two intimately entering and exiting high-end restaurants and luxury stores. The woman's slightly protruding belly suggested a possible pregnancy. In the background of the photos, Zane Lin's wrinkled face could faintly be seen beaming with laughter. Wang Xiulian's hands trembled uncontrollably, and the photos scattered all over the floor. She stared at Zane Lin's smug face in the photo, then looked at Lin Tianyu lying on the hospital bed, on the verge of death and emaciated. The last glimmer of light in her eyes extinguished, replaced by a chilling mix of resentment and madness. Nola Lin occasionally cared about the situation at the hospital. When she had previously visited Lin Tianyu, she took advantage of Wang Xiulian's inattention, and a smaller remote monitoring device accidentally slipped from her pocket. Rolling into the most hidden corner under the hospital bed, through this little gadget, Nola Lynn saw many dramatic scenes. Late at night when no doctors or nurses were making rounds, or taking advantage of moments when others in the same room were sound asleep, Wang Xiulian would stare fixedly at Lin Tianyu. She no longer cried, nor did she feed him or change his diapers. Sometimes she would suddenly lift the frail infant upside down, shaking him viciously a few times. Cursing in a voice only the two of them could hear, "Monster, why don't you just die? It's all your fault, you little debt collector." At other times, she would cover Lin Tianyu's mouth and nose with a blanket until the child emitted faint whimpers, his small face turning blue and purple from suffocation. Before releasing him with a sick sense of satisfaction, Nola Lynn watched the screen expressionlessly, her fingers lightly tapping on the desk. "Isn't this the precious son you dreamed of day and night and went to any lengths to have? Wang Xiulian, enjoy the blessing you begged for. In your previous life, you aided and abetted evil. In this life, it's your turn to taste the bitter fruit yourself." Another 6 months passed in Wang Xiulian's daily despair and Nola Lin's cold indifference. Lin Tianyu was still clinging to life. The hospital bills kept piling up, and Wang Xiulian had grown numb to it all. That day, the hospital room door was pushed open, and a familiar yet unfamiliar figure walked in, Zane Lin. He had actually returned, after months of absence, far from looking disheveled. He was dressed in a sharp suit, his hair slicked back, a flashy gold watch on his wrist. A far cry from the desperate father who had been hounded online. Wang Xiulian froze. Her bloodshot eyes fixed intently on him. Zane Lin wore a hypocritical smile as he approached, even gently taking Wang Xiulian's withered hand. His voice was deliberately soft and tender. "Xiulian, I'm back. You've suffered so much during this time." Wang Xiulian abruptly shook off his hand, her voice hoarse. "Why did you come back? To save you, to save us." A flicker of calculation passed through Zane Lin's eyes. "I found a master who said there's still a chance for us. I met a woman outside. And she's also pregnant with my son. As long as," he leaned closer to Wang Xiulian, his voice dropping lower, "as long as that debt-collecting ghost Lin Tianyu and that little bitch Nola Lin both die in an accident, we can get a huge insurance payout. I bought policies for both of them long ago. Then we can run away, start over, and you can give me a healthy son." Wang Xiulian trembled all over, looking at Zane Lin as if seeing him for the first time. The madness and greed in his eyes sent chills down her spine, but thinking of Lin Tianyu's bottomless medical expenses and her own desperate situation, her withered heart slowly began to nurture a twisted glimmer of hope. "Nola Lin, will she listen to us?" Wang Xiulian's voice was parched. "Her birthday is coming soon." Zane Lin sneered coldly. "On that day, you call her and say you're going to jump off the hospital rooftop with Tianyu, and ask her to come, once she arrives. We'll send the mother and child to reunite together." Under the hospital bed, the miniature surveillance device clearly recorded every word of this conversation, along with every sinister expression on Zane Lin's face. On Nola Lin's birthday, her phone rang right on time. It was Wang Xiulian's voice. Choked with sobs and trembling, "Nola, come to the city hospital rooftop quickly. I don't want to live anymore. I'm going to jump with Tianyu. Your father has abandoned us. Mom. Don't do anything foolish." Nola Lin's voice sounded extremely anxious, with just the right amount of panic. "I'm tied up at the lab right now, but I've already called the police. The police and ambulance should arrive soon. Please don't act impulsively, wait for them." Zane Lin and Wang Xiulian exchanged a glance over the phone, a flicker of impatience flashing in Zane Lin's eyes. This had to be resolved before the police arrived. "Oh, Mom," Nola Lin said, as if suddenly remembering something. Her voice tinged with a mix of lingering fear and relief. "Thank goodness I installed a high-definition camera on the rooftop a few days ago to practice anatomical suturing. I thought the view was good and the lighting was perfect. I was just filming specimens. But who would have thought? Mom, please don't move around. Just in case it catches something bad." The other end of the phone fell silent instantly. Zane Lin snatched the phone, his voice twisted with anger. "What did you say?" "A camera." His first thought was that Nola Lin was bluffing, but then it occurred to him. This little brat was cunning and couldn't be underestimated. Nola Lin let out an "oh no," as if she had let something slip. "Dad, you're there too." I just set it up casually. I didn't mean anything by it. The police should be here soon, so please don't do anything rash." "You little bitch." Zane Lin growled, abruptly hanging up the phone. He glared at Wang Xiulian, his face twisted with rage. The plan might have to change. That little bastard might have installed cameras and called the police. Wang Xiulian also panicked, her face drained of color. What do we do then? Zane, the insurance money. Zane Lin's eyes darted rapidly. If the police really came, their scheme would be exposed. The insurance money would be lost, and they'd end up in prison. He glanced toward the rooftop entrance, then at the barely breathing Lin Tianyu in his arms, and finally at Wang Xiulian. A more vicious and desperate idea began to form in his mind. There's no time. Zane Lin's expression hardened. Since the plan to scam Nola Lin's insurance might not work, he had to go all in. He had to create a fait accompli before the police arrived, even if the cameras captured part of it. As long as there was no recording of their earlier conspiracy, he might still argue that Wang Xiulian was trying to kill her son and then herself, and he simply couldn't stop her in time. Wang Xiulian. Didn't you want to die? I'll grant your wish. Zane Lin suddenly lashed out, roughly snatching Lin Tianyu from Wang Xiulian's arms and charging violently toward the edge of the rooftop. Zane Lin, you're insane. Wang Xiulian screamed, trying to grab the child back, but Zane Lin shoved her with a backhanded push, causing her to stagger backward several steps. Standing at the edge of the rooftop, Zane Lin looked down at the son who had brought him endless trouble and shame since birth. Without the slightest hesitation, he raised his arm and hurled Lin Tianyu directly off the dozen-story-high rooftop. Ah! Wang Xiulian let out a short, sharp scream. Then, as she watched Lin Tianyu fall like a withered leaf, a strange, eerie smile of liberated madness slowly spread across her face. The next second, Zane Lin suddenly turned around and, taking advantage of Wang Xiulian's distraction, gave her another hard push. Wang Xiulian also screamed as she fell backward, over the railing. Following in Lin Tianyu's footsteps, "This way, there will be no evidence left," he gasped, his face twisted with the desperation of a final gamble. Almost at the same moment Wang Xiulian fell, the door to the rooftop was slammed open, and several police officers, along with Nola Lin and the Professor Li and two burly male colleagues she had notified, rushed in. What they saw was Zane Lin leaning over the edge of the rooftop, weeping bitterly as he looked down, his voice piercing and mournful. "Xiulian, Tianyu, my child, why were you so foolish?" He beat his chest and stamped his feet, performing the role of a husband and father who failed to stop them in time and was grief-stricken. In his mind, he calculated that as long as Nola Lin's camera only captured the moment he pushed them, he could argue that Wang Xiulian had intended to throw the child first and then commit suicide, and that he had accidentally pushed her during the struggle. Nola Lin, her expression calm, walked up to one of the officers and handed over her phone. "Officer, this is the entire process recorded by the surveillance I installed, including their earlier conspiracy in the hospital room to lure me to the rooftop in an attempt to kill me and my child to claim the insurance money. As well as everything that just happened." She deliberately emphasized the words conspiracy in the hospital room. The video began to play, and the conversation between Zane Lin and Wang Xiulian in the hospital room, plotting to murder Nola Lin and Lin Tianyu for insurance fraud, was crystal clear. Every word struck Zane Lin's heart like a heavy hammer. Immediately after, on the rooftop, upon learning that cameras and the police were on their way, his face twisted into a grimace as he decided to strike first. Throwing Lin Tianyu off himself and then pushing Wang Xiulian over the edge, the complete footage was ironclad evidence, leaving no room for denial. Zane Lin's wailing came to an abrupt halt. He stared in disbelief at the footage playing on Nola Lin's phone screen, especially the dialogue from the hospital room. The grief on his face instantly froze, turning into ashen terror and venomous resentment. He never imagined that Nola Lin's surveillance had started as early as in the hospital room. "Nola Lin, you bitch." He lunged at Nola Lin but was swiftly restrained by two police officers who pinned him to the ground with his hands twisted behind his back. "You've been reborn too, haven't you, you damn bitch? You've been reborn. I've been defeated by you twice now." Reborn. The lead officer keenly caught the word and signaled his subordinates to tighten the handcuffs, emphasizing his tone. "Take him back and interrogate him thoroughly." News quickly came from downstairs. Lin Tianyu died on the spot, while Wang Xiulian was rushed to the hospital for emergency treatment. Although she survived, her severe injuries resulted in critical brain damage. ultimately leaving her in a vegetative state. She would spend the rest of her life confined to a hospital bed, truly unable to live or die. Nola Lin watched as Zane Lin was escorted away by the police, still cursing wildly. His twisted face no longer evoked any fear in her. She let out a soft sigh as the wind on the rooftop tousled her hair. The sky seemed a little clearer. The bloodshed and despair of her past life had finally come to an end at this moment. In the courtroom, faced with overwhelming evidence, Zane Lin's initial arrogance turned into feeble excuses. When the secretly recorded conversation from the hospital room and the complete surveillance footage from the rooftop, submitted by Nola Lin, were played on the large screen, the gallery gasped in shock. Zane Lin attempted to shift all the blame onto Wang Xiulian, who was now in a vegetative state, and even accused Nola Lin of deliberately framing him, claiming he had merely made a momentary mistake. Yet, every frame of the footage and every word of the conversation clearly revealed his greed, cruelty, and hypocrisy. The prosecutor's statement was logical and carried immense weight with every word. Finally, the gavel fell with solemn gravity. Zane Lin was found guilty on multiple charges, including intentional homicide, Lin Tianyu, attempted intentional homicide, Wang Xiulian, Nola Lin, insurance fraud, and abuse. With combined penalties for multiple crimes, he was sentenced to death, to be carried out immediately. When the news reached the countryside, old Mrs. Lin was in the courtyard, cursing and scolding, blaming Nola Lin, the ungrateful wretch, for ruining her entire family. When the village official informed her of the verdict, she froze for a moment, then her triangular eyes widened, and she shrieked, "Impossible! My grandson is a divine child. My son was framed. It was that little bitch who brought misfortune to our family." She lunged to claw at the official but suddenly stumbled. Her face contorted and collapsed to the ground. The stroke came swiftly and violently, leaving old Mrs. Lin paralyzed. The neighbors she had once bossed around now only dared to peek over the courtyard wall, unwilling to get involved in such misfortune. Not long after, the once domineering old woman, clinging to her obsession with her divine golden grandson and her curses for Nola Lin, passed away silently in her foul, neglected shack. It was said that when she was found, she was emaciated to little more than bones, with not even a drop of clean water in the room, in a high-end ward at the city hospital. Wang Xiulian lay like a withered log, only the faint rise and fall of her chest proving she was still alive. Nola Lin regularly paid her medical expenses. No more, no less, just enough to sustain her vital signs. That day, Nola Lin came again. She tucked the blanket around Wang Xiulian, her voice calm and steady. "Mom, how have you been lately? I have some good news for you. The son that Zane Lin had with that woman outside is 1 month old now, fair and chubby, quite adorable." Wang Xiulian's expression remained unresponsive, but her eyelids seemed to tremble ever so slightly. Nola Lin continued, a faint trace of amusement in her tone. "But, I had someone look into it. That child, just like your grandson Lin Tianyu, has no blood relation to Zane Lin either. That woman is quite shrewd. Zane Lin was just one of her many wallets. He'll never know, even in death, that the heir he so desperately wanted is just another shiny green hat. Don't you think that's laughable?" She picked up a damp towel nearby and meticulously wiped Wang Xiulian's sallow, withered fingers. "Don't worry, I'll make sure you live well. After all, you always wanted a son so badly. If Zane Lin knew from beyond the grave that he'd been made a fool of again, wouldn't he be so furious he'd jump out of his urn? This blessing, you'll have to enjoy it on his behalf." The day before the execution, Nola Lin went to see Zane Lin for the last time, through the thick visitation glass. Zane Lin looked haggard, but his eyes still held a venomous glare as he continued to spew foul curses. Nola Lin didn't say a word. Instead, she took a document from her bag, slowly unfolded it, and pressed it against the glass. It was the DNA test report confirming that Zane Lin was not the biological father of the child he had with his mistress. Every word of the negative conclusion was circled in red, stark and glaring. At first, Zane Lin was confused, but once he saw the content clearly, his pupils contracted sharply. Then, his eyes widened in fury, and he lunged at the glass like a madman, pounding it frantically with his shackled hands, roaring like a wild beast. "Impossible! You bitch! You did this! It was you, you bitch!" He thought of Wang Xiulian, of Lin Tianyu. of the absurdity of having been made a father twice, until all his hopes vanished, and immense humiliation and despair swallowed him whole, as the guards forcibly dragged him away. He was still screaming hysterically, "You've been reborn too, Nola Lynn, you must have been reborn too, I'll never let you go." Even as a ghost, Nola Lynn watched quietly as he was dragged away, until the roars completely faded at the end of the corridor. She picked up the appraisal report and casually tossed it into the trash can outside the visitation room. On a sunny and pleasant day, Nola Lynn came to the suburban cemetery and placed a bouquet of daisies in front of the small tombstone of Lin Tianyu. She crouched down and whispered softly, "Little brother, I'm sorry for bringing you into this world in such a way and letting you leave like that. If there is a next life, go to a warm family, free from illness and disaster, safe and happy, with someone who truly loves you, through legal channels." Nola Lynn recovered the portion of her mother Wang Xulian's premarital property that she was entitled to inherit, as well as the portion of assets acquired by Zane Lin using illegal gains that were considered proceeds of crime. She also disposed of the dilapidated ancestral home in the countryside that belonged to old Mrs. Lin. She sold all of these and, together with a portion of her own savings, anonymously donated the entire sum to several local charities dedicated to combating domestic violence and aiding underprivileged out-of-school children. When the donation receipts arrived, she glanced at them and put them away, feeling a deep sense of peace. Nola Lynn successfully completed her medical studies and, with outstanding grades, joined the neonatal department of the city hospital, with her solid theoretical foundation and calm, meticulous skills. She quickly grew into a young doctor capable of handling responsibilities independently in the department. Under the shadowless lamp, she was fully focused on performing a complex rescue for a critically ill premature newborn. Sweat soaked the hair on her forehead, but her hands remained as steady as a rock. When the data on the monitor finally stabilized and the baby let out its first weak yet powerful cry, everyone in the operating room breathed a sigh of relief. Li Xiangyang removed her mask. Revealing a tired but relieved smile, she walked over to the incubator and looked at the tiny life, her gaze gentle yet resolute. "Dr. Lin, thank you so much. You saved my son's life again." A young father outside the ward was so emotional he could barely speak, repeatedly bowing to Li Xiangyang, who had just stepped out of the operating room. Nola Lynn waved her hand gently, her voice soft. "It's what I should do. The baby's condition is temporarily stable, but we'll need to continue monitoring. You should also make sure to get some rest." Sunlight streamed through the glass windows of the hospital corridor, casting a warm glow on her white uniform and reflecting in her clear, bright eyes. The darkness and bloodshed of the past had long been buried by her own hands, and the canvas of her future was now being painted stroke by stroke with boundless light and hope. She knew the road ahead was long, but she would walk it with determination, growing toward the sun. That's the end of today's story. If you've listened this far, please leave a comment saying happy every day to wish everyone happiness every day.